So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Member Cafe. We are going to get started in just a few moments. Sasha Bonner is going to be our host and facilitator today. So, we're just going to give our guests a few moments, participants to get logged on, and we'll get our session started for today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us for our monthly member cafe. My name is Sasha Bonner, and I'm a part of member engagement team here at Partners. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today. We have our staff here I'm going to introduce to you. We have Terry Christie, who's our behind the scenes Zoom guru. She knows all things Zoom, so we're going to be dependent on Terry to be our person today. Sorry for the pressure, Terry. I have Ann next. She will be our question moderator, as well as we have Stacy Lawrence next, and she will be entering information into our chat for you to copy and share and paste and utilize. Our topic today will be embracing wellness, self-care tips through the holiday. Now, I am not sure about our audience here, but I know myself, this is something that is very important as we are getting ready for, getting those gifts and being with those loved ones. Is very important that we have to make sure we take care of ourselves. But before we go into our session, let's go over a few housekeeping rules. We are offering today's session in closed caption. If you do not need this feature at the bottom of your screen, you can simply hover over the live transcript and click Hide Subtitle. This meeting is being recorded. I'm sorry, this meeting is not being recorded this time. We usually do record our meetings, but we're going to be live, and whatever you get from us today is how you're going to remember it. So let's make sure we're paying attention and taking notes. We still will be offering information as well, even though we're not recorded, but we want you to really lock into this actual individual session. We will share contact information for our member engagement later on in our presentation, as well as our presenters. And I want to make sure that you understand that we will not be recording, and you will not be receiving a slide deck afterwards. Okay, so again, you will have our contact information if needed to follow up with. And I want to make sure that you understand that we will be here to answer any questions and provide any information. Let's take a look at our Zoom features located at the bottom of the screen. Okay, chat is disabled for this session. You will not be able to put in a chat, but Q&A is open for you to enter questions as information is being presented. Again, remember that Stacy will be dropping that information in, so you can have the information throughout the entire presentation. We will moderate questions at the end. Reactions, they're available throughout the time. You can raise your hand, and once you raise your hand during the question time, and we will open your mic and unmute you so you can have the floor. Okay, okay, so now I want to introduce our speakers to you. We have guests or members from Partners here. We have Jeannie Patterson and Kelsey Disla. Kelsey, I've been trying to practice your name, making sure I pronounce it correctly. Did I do you justice? I hope. Okay. First, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Miss Jeannie Patterson. I'm pretty sure some of you may know who she is. She does a lot with our community trainings, and I knew her before I knew anybody else, actually. A brief little bio about Jeannie Patterson is she's a graduate of Salem College, I'm sorry. She has a variety of experience, including school social work, Child Protective Services, and domestic violence. She has worked at Partners since 2015 and has been a community training coordinator for the past 5 years. She has 2 children as well as 2 grandchildren. Next, I have Kelsey. Kelsey is a part of our member engagement team as well. She is a member engagement bilingual health educator. She has worked in the behavioral health field for almost 8 years. And before that, she worked in education. Kelsey believes that education and working collaboratively are fundamental components to healthier communities. I can't agree with you more, Kelsey. That's a great sentiment as well as a model to live by. I would like to say one thing before turning it over to Jeannie. We will not be having our member cafe next. We will not be hosting member cafe for January. We will skip that month, but we will return February 11th at 1 p.m. Did I say 2025? Good gracious. Yes, we will return for you February 11th at 1 p.m. And you will get that information at the end, and I will repeat it, so I don't want you guys to miss out. That will be a great topic, a subject, as well as a fresh start to the year. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Jeannie.
Thank you very much, Sasha. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. So again, our topic for today is embracing wellness, and we're going to talk about self-care tips for the holidays. We know that, as Sasha already said, there are many things that make us more stressed than usual when we think about the holidays and all the things that we have to do, and gatherings and gifts and decorating houses and cooking and all those things. So before we start, though, I invite you to think about what it is that brings you peace, maybe makes you feel calm. And as you do that, I invite you to pay attention to the sensations that you notice if you think about that thing that is that brings you peace. Take a moment maybe and stay with those sensations. We will come back to that in a few minutes during our presentation. But let's talk for a moment about some self-care. This is a particular time whenever we are feeling stressed, as we said. And so this comes from SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. So it's a federal agency that has lots and lots of information about things in behavioral health. And these are the way they break down self-care and in all these different areas. And so we'll talk about, you can think about maybe spiritual self-care and what that means, or financial self-care, cognitive self-care, aptitudinal self-care, maybe what our sense of purpose is, self-care in relationships, and our environment, and physical self-care. So I believe Terry is going to open the chat for you to put in the chat what are some things you already do for self-care in any of those domains, or anything else you can think of. What do you do for self-care for yourselves? I'm seeing go for a walk, and taking a walk and enjoy fresh air. It's going too fast. Bubble baths, having a massage, that's awesome. Crochet and listening to books, that's great. Watching a good movie. Sleep, yeah, definitely we need to get enough sleep during this time in particular. Getting massages, volunteering. So you folks already know a lot about self-care. Reading. I'm seeing lots of really good answers coming in the chat. So again, we know self-care is so important for us, and that sometimes, unfortunately, when we really are busy and have so much going on, that's the thing that takes a back seat, and it can eventually burn us out, or like us, this our tanks get low maybe, and we need to figure out what we need to do to refresh ourselves. I'm also seeing listen to Christmas music, particularly. Yes, another bubble bath, massages. Oh, a lot of people are proponents of massages. Yeah. Um, that's absolutely. So thank you for those comments, and just keep on thinking about self-care. But I invite you, maybe as you look at this graphic, and think about what is one thing, maybe one change you could make. Um, Kind of sounds a little bit like we're meddling when we talk about financial at this time of year, but maybe it's a good time really to think about financially. Maybe it's setting a budget for the gifts we're going to buy, or whatever it is that we normally spend that's maybe above what our normal expenses this year. So maybe a good place to start. Or maybe we think about after the holiday, making plans for how we're going to save for next year, perhaps, things like that. Thinking about cognitively, I heard you talking about reading a book and things like that. Those are definitely things that can help us cognitively. Aptitudinally, I think about, as I said, having that purpose. So whatever we're doing, whether it's having a job for pay, or volunteering, or caring for a child or a loved one, or being a student, whatever it is that we do, making sure that we have purpose when we do that, and even just being the best at whatever it is that we're doing, and making sure that we're doing the best. Thinking about relationships, not too long ago, I heard somebody make the statement that no is a complete sentence, that there are times maybe we need to set boundaries and say, no, I can't do that. And it's okay to do that, and it's part of our self-care. So whatever those boundaries are, or maybe for you, it's finding people, taking a class, or something that, having an opportunity to be around people and to develop relationships, perhaps. Environmentally, I heard lots of you talking about taking walks. A great thing to think about, as we can enjoy nature, and especially on days when it's nice, and being able to be outside, or whatever that looks like for you. Physically, we know, of course, and some of you talked about sleeping, so we know sleep is so important. Eating healthy foods is very important, and again, that might be a hard one for us this time of year when there are so many temptations going on, but trying to remember to have those healthy foods as well. Emotionally, just thinking about how we can express ourselves, and being able to take care of ourselves emotionally, and to make sure that we have those positive relationships with other people. And then finally, spiritually, whatever that means for you, maybe just having a sense that there's something greater than we are. That's part of our lives, and just really being aware of that, and maybe rejoicing in that, perhaps. So I invite you to choose at least one of these domains, and think about maybe one change you could make. I can go ahead and tell you now that when I say this, the thing that I need to do more often than I do is make sure I go to bed at a good time, so that I can get a good night's sleep. That definitely helps me physically when I remember to do that. So I invite you to think about that as we go through our training the rest of today. So just want to briefly mention, go back and talk a little bit about how stress impacts us. There we go. So I skipped over this earlier, but we know that stress causes our bodies to causes wear and tear on our bodies. Kelsey's going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that happen, but it's kind of a cycle of stress. We experience something stressful, and our bodies respond in a way that we have been created to help us to stay alive. So we have that reaction. If that continues to happen to us every time, it causes wear and tear on our bodies, and eventually that can reduce our optimal health, which causes us to be more sensitive to stress. And then something stressful happens again, and that cycle just keeps on going. And as you see, it can possibly cause us to continue to decline, maybe in our health and our wellness. So one thing as I think about this, before I pass it to Kelsey, as I just thought about, and that's just maybe laughter, and thinking about how important laughter can be in our lives. And so maybe if you journal, or if you decide to start journaling, think about funny things that happen throughout the day, and write them down, or just making notes, or just noticing those funny things that happen throughout our day. Maybe it's, if you have time, watch a funny movie. If you don't have time for a full-length movie, watch something on YouTube, perhaps some shorts on YouTube. And then another idea, I'm always amazed when I watch improv, because those people can think so quickly. The the things they come up with that are so funny. And so I found this little site here, and I'll send it to Stacy later, and she can put it in the chat for you. But maybe just learn improv, just something you can do to really focus on humor. We know that when we laugh, it has actually physical impact on us. It stimulates our heart, our lungs, and our muscles. It can actually relieve that stress response and soothe tension. If you've ever been in a stressful situation and then something funny happened and you think about that and how it just relieves all that tension, perhaps. It also is releasing feel-good hormones in our brain. So we get those hormones that help our feelings of just making us feel better. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey, and she's going to start talking to you about some skills that we can also use to help us manage our responses when we start feeling ourselves being stressed.
Thank you, Jean. So we're going to go ahead and go into the portion of going over the community resiliency model. And this particular training was created to really help us to learn how to manage stress, learn how to manage trauma and different things that happen to us throughout our life. And so the community resiliency model training was developed, and it started with a Trauma Resource Institute, and Elaine Miller Karras, which you're seeing her name there, is part of the team that created this particular training. It is research informed, and it continues to develop evidence through ongoing work that happens as they continue to implement. And people like us, like Jeannie and myself, who come out into the community and train, we're also really looking at the results that this particular training has for folks as they, again, are learning different skills and helping even as a community how to alleviate symptoms of chronic stress, right? We just had Helene, and we know that people are still in recovery, and the efforts around that recovery is based on the village that is helping with that, right? It takes a village, it takes a community. So individually, when we are proactively doing things to reduce our stress, it's great. But when we do it together, maybe with our families, our kiddos, and we practice it as a community, it really does alleviate those chronic symptoms of stress, and it brings healing. So very important to know that that's available. So we are going to talk about a set of 6 wellness skills that can be shared, used personally, but also shared. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what your life experiences are, who you are. This particular training really touches across cultures, across different types of families, across different learning abilities, or with different learning abilities or abilities. And so again, it just really from 0 to 100, if you live more, like my great grandmother who was 106, it would have applied to her as well, right? So really it goes across a lifespan and cultures, and it doesn't have any limitations. We want to share with you, and we want to start by sharing that there is a resource available to you. It is called the iChill app, and I want to invite you to go ahead and look it up in your phone if you have it readily available next to you. Our phones are mostly attached to us, so we want to invite you to go ahead, look up that iChill app, because as we're going through some of the information that we're talking to you today, you can actually follow along with the app, but also you'll be able to access this later on, because we are going to quickly go through some of these skills, but we want you to have it available to you so that you can go back to it and continue to learn. It has a plethora of resources, and Elaine actually is the one who is reading through some of these different skills and teaching you how to navigate that app. So hopefully you're already downloading it and putting it in your phone for later use. So when we go back and we think about stress and the reactions to stress that we have, there are different areas in our way of responding that stress touches us and makes us to have some common reactions. So I want to invite you to go ahead and look at some of these as we're looking at these 6 different areas that maybe stress could affect us. And if you don't know the definition of stress, stress is any given change at any given time. And our body responds to it. It registers little stress, we can handle that and keep going, and big stress, which we call, that flight and fight response. And so our bodies respond to that. And it responds sometimes with our thinking. And maybe if we're so overwhelmed with stress, we forgot what we were trying to do, the next thing that we need. We had a list that we were going to purchase some stuff and we forgot what it was. It could also present as in an emotional state where we maybe exhibit anger or grief or rage, or maybe we just want to isolate. So we go into our room, we want to get away from everyone. Physically, we'll feel our bodies reacting to it. How many of us have felt tension on our shoulders or our neck? And that's why we saw massages as self-care, right? We get our tense body physically, and we need to reduce that stress, and we go get a massage, we go take that bath with some Epsom salt, and it helps us to reduce that physical pain or stress. It can also show in our relationships. Maybe I'm having a stressful day, things aren't going the way I needed it to, and maybe now I'm being snappy with my kids, or I'm getting upset with them and irritated with them for maybe something that they did. So again, you can read some of these and probably relate. So we want you to just we want to invite you to think about, how do I react to stress? When stress is happening to me, what are some of my common reactions? Maybe jot that down, or have it in your mind, because what we want to do is learn how to reduce that stress and react and choose to do things differently. So we're going to pivot and we're going to talk about something called ACEs, and it stands for Adverse Childhood Experience. And this was a study that was done by a big insurance company called Kaiser Permanente. And they originally wanted to research with their staff around chronic illnesses. And what they saw was, with some of the original questions, is that a lot of these chronic illnesses were actually related to some of these adverse childhood experiences or traumatic experiences that some people had. And so when they found out there was a direct correlation to that, they developed this ACEs survey that people can take. And as you're taking this survey, you're asked questions that are related to these particular different areas that we could potentially have some experiences that are adverse, right? And so it could be abuse, neglect, or our household if there's any dysfunction there. And so what we found out, or what they found out, is that you will get a score per question that you have related to that ACE questionnaire that they put together. And that score is related to what our ACE score would be. And then it puts us at a higher risk to develop some of these chronic illnesses later on in life, and also some of the brain health issues that maybe could happen to us as well. And so on this slide, basically, this is some of the research that they did. And what it showed was that if you had an ACE score above 4, then you had a higher or significant higher rate of things like heart disease, diabetes, pulmonary lung disease, and so on and so forth with these chronic illnesses. It also showed that if you had an even higher score, that you would have a higher risk and a likelihood to then try to, what we call, self-medicate, or try to use other ways to navigate through some of these feelings of adverse experiences or traumatic experiences. And so, again, here are some of the research numbers that they found. And so, again, the higher your ACE score, the higher your risk in developing physical or mental issues later on in life. So do not despair because even though we might have ACEs, we also have PACEs. And PACEs stands for positive childhood experiences, right? And I will give you an example. I grew up in New York in the 80s and 90s, and we had crime. We had all sorts of crime. We had drug dealers in the corner. Our environment wasn't really a healthy environment. But what we also had, I particularly had Lily. She was an old lady and she lived with her husband, Rob, and they would look out the window, especially Lily had mobility issues, but she knew everybody in the block. And what she did was she was friendly and she was one of those community people who was aware of what was happening with the kiddos in the street, in the block, and she asked about you and she gave you a sense of belonging. And so what we want you to think about or invite you to think about is what were some of those good things that happened with you? What were the places and the things that you did that made you feel safe, that made you feel protected, adults maybe around? So Lily helped us to feel safe, right? She helped us to feel like we belong. What are those things and those experiences that you had maybe in the home or external to the home? Maybe you were part of a group, a sport, something that helped you to feel a sense of belonging and you enjoyed participating in that community tradition or event or things that you do. So PACES is very important because it helps us to really balance out the ACEs. And when we have PACEs, positive psychology says we practice PACEs to, again, to balance out some of those traumatic events we might have had when we were children. So here we have, again, some of the different types of stressful situations that we might encounter. We have different levels, and some of these are minor, some of them are tolerable, and then you have what we call toxic stress, right? The things that we want to avoid at all costs. And so if we are in these spaces, they're going to really, really, really constantly have us in that fight and flight response in our body. And so we want to make sure that we're balancing things out. And we're mentioning this because we want to invite you to think about what your environment is like. Maybe you are out shopping and it gets to be so chaotic, right? Back in my day, Black Friday meant people were running over each other to get that sale. They were standing in line for a million hours before they can get into a place to get that new cool thing. And so just being mindful of your environment is very, very important so that you can moderate some of these different stress levels that we're dealing with on a day-to-day. So now we want to, again, pivot a little bit and we want to talk to you about perception, right? Because there are certain things that individuals perceive a certain way, and maybe an event that happened to them in their lives that they felt was life-threatening, that was something that made them feel frightened. And it's very important that when we talk about perception, we understand that perception looks different for all of us. And we have an example for you. And what we want you to do is in this next slide, look at what it says here and tell me if you can use the chat really quick. tell me, what do you read here in these jumble words that are together? What do you see this says? I like puzzles, so sorry. I'm throwing this one out there. Okay, I see somebody said, I am now here. Awesome. Who sees something different? All right. I am nowhere, right? So we're either seeing I am nowhere or I am now here. Now, the question is, who's correct? Who's right? Who's wrong? Nobody. It's really about perception. So maybe I glanced at it and saw, I am now here. And maybe Jeannie glanced at it and said, nope, it says I am nowhere. If her and I were to go back and forth about what it really said, we're going to be there all day because both of us are correct. It's just about perception. So we wanted to give you a little glance about perception, because when somebody's sharing with you how they're feeling, or you're sharing with someone how they're feeling, that perception is 100% of that person's reality. So we want to make sure that we respect, and that when we are engaging, if we're supporting someone with some of these CREM skills that we're going to teach you, or if we are having someone listen to us, that we have that safe space where our perception is being respected, and that, again, we can be experiencing the same thing, but our perception makes us feel different realities, and just respecting that is important. So we're gonna go ahead and move into explaining our resiliency zone, and I'm passing it back to Jeannie.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. So this is there are several key concepts when we talk about the community resiliency model, which, as you've heard, we call CREM for short. This is one that's really important to us, and that is what we call the resilient zone. So that resilient zone is that place where we are most days, perhaps, when maybe things are going well for us, or maybe something happens, maybe our computer won't start, or maybe we wake up late and we're running behind, or maybe we're excited about something, but we can manage our responses, and we can stay in this place that we call the resilient zone. And some people might call it, especially for children, we might call it the okay zone, but it's where we can manage all our responses. But then something happens to us. Maybe it's something very stressful, or we have a trigger for remember trauma or something like that, and we get bumped out of our resilient zone. So maybe we find ourselves being really irritable, or just really hyper. Maybe we can't relax, or just feeling anxious, or having really angry outbursts, things like that. We call that being stuck in the high zone. And then for some of us, maybe we respond by just feeling really depressed and sad, or we're just exhausted and maybe just feeling numb. We call that being stuck in the low zone. I always think about those, when I think about children in particular, those guys who are up here in the high zone, they get attention. They get, hopefully their needs, they get some kind of attention, hopefully something to address their needs. But I worry about these folks that are down here in the low zone. If they can just kind of maybe go under the radar, people aren't really noticing because they're not causing a problem. They're just checked out maybe. But what we want to do is as we practice the skills, we want to widen that zone so we're able to manage a wider range of things and still stay in that zone where we're okay, and we can manage our emotions as we make that resilient zone a little wider. So now passing it back to Kelsey to start talking about the skills.
All righty, thank you so much. So what we're going to do is talk about the skills, and in this next slide, there are 6 different skills that we focus on. We just have time to go over a few with Jeannie and you all today, excuse me. But yes, so tracking is going to be at the center of everything we do, and I'll go into tracking in a little bit to kind of explain what this is. But there are 6 skills that, again, are available in the app for you to learn more about as well. So Community Resiliency Model Guide is basically wellness skills, again, that we are using to model with others. It does, when we learn it, it helps us, but it also helps those around us, because then we can use it with our kiddos and we can use it with those who are around us and support others and share this resource. It doesn't interpret or assume meaning of any sort, and it basically is about opening the door for people to do what we're doing with you today, understand how they function and understand what their responses to stresses are. Maybe if they did have traumatic or adverse childhood experiences. And really, it's to give you some skills and some techniques to develop so that you can, again, help you yourself, but also help somebody around you. It's about observing what happens with ourselves, but us also observing what happens with others as we're supporting them. Excuse me. So we're going to go in, excuse me, we're going to go ahead and talk about one of our skills, and that is our help now and reset skills. And these are quick skills that we can access. They work really, really well with anybody, especially with our kiddos who have a shorter attention span and we want to help them. And so if we're engaging with them or anybody and ourselves, and we need to use one of these skills, it's something you can use at work, anywhere that you are, at the store if you're shopping or not. And these particular skills really help you to go from that stressful situation and reset quickly and get you back on track in that resiliency zone, on your okay zone. And here you have something that's super simple, which is like drinking a glass of water or juice or tea. When we do that, what our body does is our brain has the capacity of doing different things at different times. We talk about multitasking all the time. Well, we don't really multitask. We switch from one task to the other. Some of us are really quick at it. Others may take a little bit of time. But what happens is when we are under stressful situations, going back to what we were saying earlier, our fight and flight response is triggered. And what it does is it reacts like an alarm, and it tells our brain to go on the defense, right? And so what ends up happening is our frontal lobes are disengaged, our thinking brain is disengaged, and we're now just thinking about how to survive. When we drink a glass of water, we have to think about it. Our mind actually has to shift into that particular action. And so what we're doing is, if we're stressed out, and you've heard so many people tell somebody if they're in need of help, hey, do you want a glass of water? It's because it helps us to de-stress. And so it kind of tricks our brain to go from that fight and flight and that response of calamity and I have to resolve this issue now to I'm going to calm down, and it relaxes our nervous system. So does thinking about and listening to the sounds that we're hearing. So refocusing our brain in something else actually helps us to calm ourselves. It automatically happens if we are calming. You've seen people who get really, really upset, or when we see our kiddos have a temper tantrum, we say, okay, well, let's calm down. Let's count backwards, or let's count down from 10. And again, that just helps us to calm down, to shift our brain from fight and flight to thinking brain, or allow us to calm down with our bodies. And you have several other ones that you have here. And again, they're available in the app, so you can go back and check those out and practice them. The next skill that we're going to go into is called tracking. And what I want you to think about with tracking, and we said it's in the center of it all, right? We're constantly reading and paying attention to some of the sensations that we are experiencing in our bodies. And so tracking is almost like, imagine if you were under an MRI machine or some sort of scan, and what you're doing is you're scanning from the top of your head all the way down to your feet, and you're learning and noticing all the different reactions and sensations that are happening with your body when you're stressed and when you're not stressed. What does that look like? And what we do is, when we're experiencing stressful situations, what we need to do is understand that we do have a choice, right? And that we need to pay attention so that when we have that choice, we can choose to maybe use one of these skills so that we can calm down and put ourselves in that resiliency zone, our okay zone. Or we can choose to still continue to maybe make other choices that are going to add to our stressful situation. So when you're experiencing stress or distress, um, pay close attention. We invite you to pay close attention to some of those sensations of distress, but also what are your sensations of well-being? What does that look like for you? With this slide, we wanted to give you a visual, and I love this slide because we never think about some of those internal reactions that our body has. And so take a moment, look at some of these different, Jean had it with when she was explaining with the resiliency zone, right? All of these different things that we feel and experience on our day-to-day, including thoughts and feelings and some of those sensations that we have with our body. Look at some of these and maybe think about, we invite you to see if, is that how you feel like your body is reacting to a stressful situation or to that particular feeling or emotion that it's talking about in this particular slide. When I look at anger, I can see that, yes, all of our sensations go up into the upper part of our body. Some of us get really, really red on our faces, and you can see some of that. Fear, if you look at that, also, it looks like it's shutting down some, and it's focused on the emotion in the center of our being there. Look at happiness, how the whole body lights up, going back to what Jeannie was saying and really tapping into that resource of joy and how effective that is for us and how it brings healing for us. So I hope you got some insight with this slide of some of our emotions and how we respond to it. So for some of us, it's very important, again, to really, really understand how we're responding to different experiences and what sensations are being sparked or triggered, and learning that we have a choice, and that the CREM skills that we're sharing with you helps us to navigate those stressors or that distress, and helps us to make choices of calming down, of using some of these skills to help us to feel better and alleviate some of these negative sensations that we might have. It's very important as we're learning what happens with us internally and externally that we learn some of these sensation words. We've been saying sensation with Jeannie from the beginning. Here are some words that I can use to, because sometimes we have feelings and emotions or where our body is reacting a certain way and we do not know what the word is to pinpoint what that particular sensation is. So maybe I'm talking about pain, and if you're a nurse, maybe you have more information on some sensations of pain, but if you're not, here are some, right? Is my pain intense? Is it medium, mild? Do I feel throbbing pain? Is it a stabbing pain? Or is it just tension in my muscle? Again, here are some words that we want to invite you to really pay attention to as you're learning some of the sensations that your body has as a response to either positive or negative situations that you're going through. I'm going to go ahead and now pass it back to Jeannie, and she's going to talk about resourcing.
Thank you. So resourcing is when we are, it can be anything really. It can be any person, a place, it could be a thing It can be a memory. It can be something that's part of ourselves. It can be internal, it can be external. It can be real, or it can even be imagined. So I think about maybe a young child who might say, I feel like a superhero and I can do this thing that I need to do. You see here some pictures. There actually are 3 of us in the community engagement department who train on a community resiliency model. And so these are all personal pictures of resources for us. I won't spend a lot of time, but I have, of course, just have to point out, you may have heard in the introduction that I do have 2 beautiful grandsons. And this was a picture that was taken a couple of months ago on the day that the younger one was born, when they were sleeping side by side on that day. So picture of them. And as amazing as that is, I'm actually going to spend just a minute talking about this resource here. And I'm actually going to model for you something that we want, that when you think about the resource and how it can be helpful to make you to help calm you down. It's one thing to say, well, I have this resource. And this particular picture, you see some people sitting on a deck and they're in the mountains. So you can say, that's my resource. Being in the mountains is my resource. But I invite you to think about what happens to yourselves, your sensations, and maybe you'll notice some differences in me as I describe what being in the mountains means to me. So I look at that picture and I think about, maybe it's a cool, crisp fall day, and maybe I'm wrapped up in a fluffy blanket, or I've got a nice warm coat on. I have a cup of hot coffee in my hand, and I'm sitting there. It's early morning, and I'm sitting with some friends, and maybe we're quiet for a while, and then maybe we have a little conversation, and then we get quiet again. And we can just feel that peace for where we are, and look at the mountains in the distance and see the clouds kind of drift across the top of the mountains. And if we go on, look down further, we might see some wildlife walking through the wooded area down below the peak of the mountain. And I don't know if that impacted you at all. I could feel myself slow down as I went through that description. And the point for that is making that, thinking about what is it that makes that resource a resource for you, and thinking about those things. And it actually can help us to manage those feelings that we're having, those responses that we have. And it makes it more real to us, more of a felt sense to us, if we can think about whatever that is that's a resource for us, whether it's taking a walk, or think about that bubble bath, or you're thinking about that massage, and really thinking about what that means and why that is a resource for us. Sometimes when we're thinking about resources, though, it's possible that we might possibly start off with those pleasant sensations as we think about that resource. And then maybe for a variety of reasons, it might take us to a more difficult memory. Perhaps if you're thinking about a person, maybe that person's no longer with us or something like that. And so it might cause us perhaps to start having some less pleasant sensations. And so if that happens, we want to acknowledge the shift. Maybe we feel the tears running down our faces, and we think about that, and we want to maybe invite ourselves, or if you're helping someone else, invite them to think about more pleasant memories about that resource. So if it's someone who isn't with us, you might say, what are some memories you have, some really good memories you have with that person? Or if that person were here right now, what would they say to you? And try again to bring your awareness back to those pleasant sensations and those pleasant memories. If you're unable to do that, maybe then it might be helpful to try to think of a different resource, if that one is really too difficult to deal with. So just be aware that a resource could possibly also cause us to have a more unpleasant response. So then we're going to talk about grounding. And I like grounding a lot because it's almost so natural. You can just do it without even really giving it much thought. So grounding is when we pay attention to what is supporting our body in the present moment. Kelsey talked earlier when she talked about Help Now, and one of the skills was taking a walk and paying attention to our feet, making contact with the ground or the floor or pavement, wherever we are. So that is a way also that we can ground when we notice our feet being supported by the ground. We can do it standing, just calmly standing with our backs against the wall. Pay attention to our back being supported by the wall, perhaps. We can definitely do it sitting, as I am right now. So I can sit in my desk chair and pay attention and focus on the chair that's supporting my body. And even my feet are on the floor, and I can focus on my feet and the connection of my feet to the floor. And I put my hand on the desk since I said that, and I can focus on my hand. I can focus on the feeling of the desk. My desk is kind of smooth and a little bit cool, so I can focus on that. So we can focus, we can use our hands and feet to help us to ground. We can also ground lying down, perhaps on some surface or floating in the water. People who live where there's a lot of water say they can ground while they're floating. Just one word of caution is that if we don't know someone's trauma history, we probably would not want to suggest that they lie down unless we know them very well. But some people might choose to lie down and to focus on that sensation of being wherever you are and what's supporting your body in that moment. So again, as I said, we do want to keep in mind someone might have a trauma response to that. It's also possible that even people just sitting in their chairs if they focus on grounding, it might cause them to have that trauma response when they start focusing on those sensations or focusing on those feelings. So in that case, maybe again, either grounding skill may not be one for them, or community resiliency model altogether is not one that's helpful to them. We always, when we talk about community resiliency model, everything is a choice. I hope you've noticed that Kelsey and I use invitational language, and we invite you to try different things. But again, just think about that this community resiliency model might not be the thing for everyone, perhaps. But if you like it and if you want to practice more, here's just some things you can think about. And that is, as you practice, maybe think about your senses. So pay attention to those things you see or smell or hear or feel or taste in that moment. And as you do that, notice the sensations in your body. I dare say, if you think about, well, for me, one of my favorite smells is, for example, chocolate chip cookies baking. So think about the sensations I experience that versus rather than if I smelled something that was unpleasant, perhaps. So notice the sensations that we experience as we are noticing those senses, and then bringing our attention to that pleasant or neutral sensations, and then sort of staying there and just focusing on that thing, that sensation that's pleasant or neutral. As a reminder, Kelsey started this out with you this earlier, but this is the iChill app. So if you'd like to download that, young people, as long as they're old enough to have a device, they can download it and have it where they can, if they need to be reminded about the skills or want to learn more than what we've covered in this 40 minutes, you can download the app and actually hear Elaine Miller-Karras in her own words describing the skills and how they can be helpful to you, and not as quickly as we have run through them today. So I'm going to close kind of quickly. I just wanted to mention that, we think about the holidays and all those things and why these things become so important and stressful to us. And I think a lot has to do with having those memories that we have of family and friends that are so important to us. So just some things to maybe think about as you think about having those memories. Maybe for you, it's again, journal. Think about those good things that happened throughout the day. Helping your children, if you have children, help them to create memories. We know that the brain actually takes our short-term memories and turns them into long-term memories while we're asleep. So maybe make part of your bedtime ritual the time to talk about all those good things that happen throughout the day. And again, helping our children. Maybe some days, maybe you're searching what was something good that happened today. So maybe the good thing today was, I saw you be a great big brother to your little sister. Just something positive as we close out the day. Now I'm going to bump it quickly to skip that. But here is my information and Kelsey's information also. And if you want to know more, we do offer a full 2-hour training of the community resiliency model once a month online. And if you'd like to have the information about how to join that and when we offer it, I'd be happy to send that to you. But I am going to stop there and turn the meeting back over to Seisha.
Can you hear me? There we go. First, Jeannie, I want to thank you because I've been taking notes. You're going to save my Christmas and my holidays, I would like to say, and I'm going to avoid toxic stress. I'm going to stay out of Target for the most part for shopping, and I'm going to ensure that I'm mindful in everything that I'm doing. So I took some notes to hold myself accountable. So thank you for that. I wanted to remind you all that our next Member Cafe will be held on February 11th, 2025 at 1 p.m. So we will not have Member Cafe in January, but It's a break, but not a long one. I just want to make sure that you guys remember that. And I believe I saw Stacy did drop the link in for registration. Talk briefly, we have some tools for individuals that are in need, as we're talking about, stress relief and everything. Free mental health support for teens in North Carolina. So there is an app called Some Things. Some Things has partnered with North Carolina, and it is free mental health support for teens in North Carolina. Teens can connect to a certified peer specialist or mentor and communicate via text or talk through the secure mobile app after school or on the weekends. The teen or legal guardian or parent can complete the form to connect to Some Things. Parents are connected. They know that teens are engaged, but the communication is private. And they can talk to the mentor if they would like to as well. If your teen presents with more serious symptoms or our clinical team is ready to step in. You can go to somethings.com/North Carolina for more information. So we spoke a little bit about teen support for mental health. We have our Pix Health, which is for adults. There's a $10 gift card for those who sign up for our Pix Health mobile app. As you know, our Pix Health mobile app is an app to help you combat loneliness or any type of feelings of or needs and lack of resources. A simple request, a buddy. There's some dad jokes on there. I have witnessed them and they are kind of funny. So you will be connected to a chat box, a chat bot, Pixar, and you will be monitored it helps monitor your physical and mental needs. We encourage our members to register for Pix, as well as you will get a $10 reward for those who sign up with Pix, and $20 for our Great Day rewards. That's more than enough for me to sign up. But again, the dad jokes are really good as well. Next, we can roll down to our slide 7, if possible. Yep, and you guys should know this already, but I'm going to reiterate the way to contact and reach out to us. We have our member and recipient services. If you want one number, and if you want to remember one number out of everything, you want to remember this number. It is 1-888-235-4673. I like to call that the gateway to partners and to services. That's where you will be connected with, in the right department, as well as provided resources as needed. We have our crisis line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That number is 833-353-2093. Our nurse advice line, which is 24/7 as well. You get answers to basic questions and concerns about your medical symptoms and or needs. And that number is 1-888-369-2452. And you see our teledoc health as well, 800-835-2362. Pharmacy services 24/7, 1-866-453-7196. And we can go on down to staying in touch with us. Again, I'm with the Member Engagement Department. We all are with the Member Engagement Department, so you will see our faces. We are extension of the Access Call Center. Staying in touch with us. Remember that number I spoke about earlier, that 1-888-235-4673. I want you to write that number down. In reference to writing that number down, I want you to also make sure that you're keeping your information updated in reference to contact for partners to give you the most efficient and accurate information, as well as updates for Medicaid services. And if you need information to your local Department of Social Services, we can assist with that, but we want to make sure that we have the right information to give you a call. So make sure you stay up to date and you stay in touch with us, okay? Again, it's 2:00 now. I want to thank you all for joining us here. You have a safe winter wonderland. Well, not really winter, but we can actually do some grounding techniques and maybe think we're in the winter wonderland in Colorado or somewhere. I'm not sure, but you guys stay safe. You know where to reach us, and we will see you next year. Bye.